Welcome back to Backstage Pass. I'm Bob Tuvey from Event Planner News. Alistair Winsey is the founder of a tech company, Avia Revolution, and the owner of a wedding and corporate event venue, Silchester Farm. He has first-hand experience of how venue staff are struggling to keep up, not just with the current economic situation, but also with the pressures of the work and the admin involved. In our conversation, we explore the needs of venue staff and how the business tries to support them, the ways in which AI can help with the admin, and the interesting history of Silchester Farm. Before we get started, a big thank you to our partners for their continued support, Vivid Ink and Eventflow. More about them at the end of the episode and, of course, in the show notes. So, Alistair, as someone who's experience of technology and for running what do you call it, a venue?
Farm
Farm?
hospitality venue. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's a venue in the middle of nowhere, so
yeah, yeah, which has its benefits.
I'm sure it does. But you would see some of the struggles that hospitality is going through, maybe from a slightly different angle or different point of view.
Yeah, exactly, Bob. I guess I've got the last 5 or 6 years of seeing it from the operator of a farm-based, events venue. So that's been a great journey for us to take a pretty much derelict farm venue or derelict farm into a venue over the last 5 or 6 years. So that's been a great opportunity. But before then, I worked in technology as well. So I've seen many different things when it comes to technology, but also I see hospitality from the customer angle as well. So those three perspectives, I think, for us is what's helped contribute towards Silchester Farm and my more recent technology company that I founded back last year. Is having that knowledge and understanding has been significant for us, really.
So tell me a little bit more about Silchester Farm because it's got some history to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carla, my wife and business partner, and I bought Silchester Farm back in 2018, actually. And the former owners pretty much did some livery, did some hay production, probably turned over between £5,000 or £10,000 per annum. But what we saw when we went and looked at Silchester Farm was a fantastic opportunity to build from the ground up, actually, a hospitality venue that would typically focus mostly on weddings at the start. But really, what we wanted to do when we looked around that site and latterly purchased and acquired it was we saw an even bigger opportunity to give so much more back to the local community, but also actually create something that was really quite unique at the time. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey. One I didn't think I was going to enjoy as much as I have. But yeah, lots of experiences, but also met so many really interesting people throughout that journey so far.
But over that time, especially probably in the last few years, where hospitality itself is going through some problems, you must have witnessed and seen some of the troubles that hospitality people are going through.
Yeah, for sure. And it changes rapidly. And actually coming from technology startups before we acquired Silchester Farm, I talk often about the different types of people. And I've learned so much about people over the last 5 or 6 years, so much more than I ever had done in my first 20 or so years in working in environments. Hospitality teaches you so much about people because you meet them that you work with every day, but you also have that additional angle of the general public and people that you meet throughout the course of either an event or the planning cycle. It just has taught Carla and myself and my management team at Silchester Farm just so much about people, which has been great.
Well, they become more than just members of staff. They're
Yeah,
not, and also probably more than just a team because you work
yeah,
with them every day and you see what they have to go through on a daily
yeah.
basis. So.
Yeah, and it's not just the team, it's not just the customers, but it's the changing landscape of hospitality as well. And coming from that startup world that I was in before, actually, I never really had thought coming sort of outside into it that actually a hospitality venue in itself or hospitality as an industry, you've got to keep reinventing yourself. You've got to keep pushing your offering forward. I always thought before I came into it that hospitality just kind of stayed the same. Yeah, you might change a menu every quarter. You might change your drinks, offering at the bar or whatever that is. But actually applying that startup mentality that I learned in those previous environments to hospitality is the only way that you can keep yourself relevant in this ever-changing world.
So, what sort of problems have you seen within hospitality, especially ones you've seen up close on
Yeah.
Silchester Farm?
Yeah, I think there's significant headwinds for, businesses like us at the moment. You pick I don't think there's just one issue that this industry has got. I believe that the opportunities are still there for sure. They're just more difficult to find. So you've got cost of living for customers is obviously something that we are very much mindful of. That's something that is ever changing for our customers, and we need to make sure that we are competitive, but we also keep our offering as relevant as possible to our target type of customer. That's really important. And biggest piece of advice I could give, any other business in there is that there are opportunities out there for sure. You've just got to work a little bit harder on finding them and keeping yourself ahead of the pack. So, headwinds for businesses, whether it's labor shortages, whether it's business rates, they're all there for sure, and hospitality businesses are facing an ever rising cost of running. The other thing is staff. Finding relevant people, finding people that are willing to work inside a really challenging industry. If you think of it from an events coordinator or an events manager, quite often my team at Silchester Farm will clock 20 to 25 to 30,000 steps a day. And, at those peak seasons, that is, it can sometimes venues and events can be running, over the course of 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 days. And it doesn't mean that one person would be doing all of those, but that's a significant amount of physical pressure on those people. But also, there's a significant amount of emotional pressure on those people as well. They're not just dealing with one customer, they're dealing with 100 customers turning up to a wedding of what is the biggest day of that bride and groom's life, right? That they've looked forward to it for years, and it's something that people are always thinking about is going to be nothing short of incredible. You think of the physical aspect, but then you think of the emotional aspect on top of that person and the pressure that they feel of not just that bride and groom, but that 100, 120 people arriving at that wedding and trying to make all of those people happy. I've got nothing but admiration for people that work in events. And if you can do that, then and if you can cope with that environment and the pressures of that, then you are nothing short of an incredible person.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, well, for starters, the amount of footwear they must be getting through
Yeah, yeah,
is quite considerable, I should imagine, especially in the farm setting.
yeah, absolutely.
To bring AI into this briefly, I don't want to focus mainly on that, but to bring it in, it must be helping in some way. If you've got your team sort of herding guests around,
Yeah,
but make sure they go all in the right places and not wander off into a field
yeah.
where there's some animals.
It's happened, Bob. It's happened.
I can imagine, yeah, because that's probably hair raising at the best of times. So, how is AI sort of relieving some of the pressures? What sort of work is it taking on for your team?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons why I had seen over the last 5 or 6 years that the pressure that it puts on a business, but also the pressure that that administration layer puts on its people as well. And we often we'll see that firsthand in our business. They might be running over the course of a July pretty much events back to back, and I can always see when you talk to staff and check in and see how they are and how they're doing that they've almost got this thing where they say, this is going great, and there's some challenges there, but we're getting through them. But all my life, I've got 100 emails, or I've got all of these couples that are going to get married in the next few months, or next few years, or whatever that is, that still need my help, still need my time. Um, and you always see that kind of that pull from events professionals where they want to not let down the people on the day, but they also have formed a relationship with this couple or this corporate client or whoever that is, and they don't want to let them down either. So that's kind of playing back into that emotional aspect that they also feel. People that truly care will have that pressure. And I think, that's really one of the reasons why I founded Ava Revolution last year. And I went out and looked at technology that could help people in this environment. And actually there wasn't really that technology that helped hospitality in that sense. And tried to kind of filter and layer, almost I call it a layer of defense for great people that work inside of hospitality and the events that they do. And I think AI has got a big part to play in how that can help teams, but also customers have a better experience from the start of that journey, which is typically via email, or when they see a wonderful wedding venue or corporate venue that they want to book their event in. That journey starts there for customers, not when they turn up on the day. And anything we can do to alleviate, automation, which is relevant 24/7 for not just our teams, but for our customers, that is a significant thing that's going to absolutely help everybody in that. There's a lot of apprehension about AI and what it can do, and is it going to replace jobs? But for me, hospitality has always been about that connection with people on site, not just when they're on site, but also throughout that planning journey as well. And I think that it's going to do nothing but enhance that journey for everybody, really. And you've got to go in with your eyes wide open on that, but it's a significant opportunity for everybody to benefit from that as well.
Yeah, using it as a tool as
Yeah.
opposed to replacing. Because do you think that with the pressures on staffing, as in there's certain increases in costs for employing people, is AI going to in some way persuade people not to take on an apprentice because they could use an AI service of some kind to do what an apprentice might do?
I think AI is going to work alongside people for sure. At this point in time, AI is able to automate those sorts of things for sure. But what's important is that you're always still making sure that AI is giving your customers relevance and is making sure that it answers people correctly. And, our industry, if I can push more people as a business front of house to that event, if I can put that one or two more people onto that event, guess what I'll do? Because I just want to ensure that everybody that comes to site that takes the time to visit Silchester Farm, or if you're other business, whatever site you've got, I would love to be able to put more staff onto that element, because that's really where people do judge you the most. And as a business, it's always tough, especially with rising minimum wages, holiday pay that's now applied to 0 hours. You look at pensions, national insurance, all of the costs that's associated with that. It's significant for a business. We're not the biggest Silchester Farm business in the world, but if you look at those costs, they're still significant for a business like us just to run. And I think if we could automate that administration layer to an extent and give customers back the answers that they want. And believe it or not, 70% of customers now, Bob, are happy to have automation or technology answer those questions as long as it's relevant. They don't mind using technology to automate that, because they just want to know the answers. They just want
Yeah,
to know.
there's nothing worse than being frustrated by
Yeah,
the fact that you've asked a question. It doesn't matter how you're asking it, whether you're going through a long list of FAQs or you've got an AI bot or whatever it is
yeah,
that you're using. If it's not answering your question in the way you
yeah,
want it to be answered,
yeah,
you have
yeah,
you have an answer in mind. So
yeah,
if it's
absolutely.
not giving it to you
Yeah,
and confirming it,
yeah.
then you could well go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we see. I spend a lot of time with customers on the technology side with Ava now, and we sit on their websites and we look at the information that they provide, and it's mostly all there, the information, but it's probably a mile or so long. What generation now is going to sit there and trawl through all of that information to find the answer to that one question? And that's really we're trying to do in terms of Ava is give our teams that time back, that layer of protection, but also to almost remove that repetitive administration layer that's there. You know, things like, can my nan come? Can I bring my dog? What
Yeah,
time is the bar shut? And if I talk to my staff, then I say, is that again the part that you enjoy the most? And they're like, they typically are the same questions all the time. So if we can remove that layer, give them the time back, but also get relevance to our customers in their answers, getting back to them quicker, and then push more people into front of house operations to enhance the customer journey. Um, who loses out of that? And you know, when in the last 20 or so years have we been able to say that no one loses? You know, typically
that's the
when you
rarity.
take those
Yeah.
trade-offs, someone always loses, but the customer gets a better experience. So does the staff. We can protect ourselves from a cost point of view as a business, but layer on you know, more resources on an event day, giving the customer that comes to the site a better experience. Everyone's a winner, Bob.
Yeah, it sounds so good.
Mm.
Sounds so good.
That's
Yeah.
why I feel so passionate about technology, being part of hospitality. It does mean that people get that breath of, do you know what? I've only got 3 emails in my inbox to deal with, not 150. You know, that's what's important here.
Yeah, it's everybody is quite rightly talking about the pressures of social media and how it's basically designed to keep your attention.
Yeah,
But there's also a certain amount of pressure from your ever-filling inbox where
yeah,
people are asking questions that could be time sensitive.
yeah. And Bob, it's not just your email inbox anymore. It's actually Instagram. There's inquiries or questions sitting there. It's WhatsApp. You know, everyone is being told at the moment to stay relevant with your customers, you've got to deploy WhatsApp. Then there's Facebook. Then there's email. Then there's the website. Then there's a contact us form. And I met a CEO of a really big London-based hotel yesterday, and we sat and we talked about what his challenges are. And I said, "What are your biggest challenges at the moment?" And he said, "As a business, we cannot cope with the layer of communication that's coming in." And this is a business that is huge. You know, it's a very well-known hotel in London, and he can't keep up with the customers that are coming from all angles, not just through one channel, but through all angles. Um, and that's what we face as businesses now is it's coming from each direction and customers. Yeah,
In a way, you can understand why customer service is often done on a social media platform
yeah, yeah,
because, well, that's where everything else is. That's where the inquiries are. So have one central communication. Doesn't stop people from sending you an email or using
yeah,
WhatsApp or anything else.
yeah. And also you look at how that as the customer journey goes through that route, they might see you on Instagram, but then they might switch to email. Then they might switch back to Instagram. And you think of that from a customer journey point of view and a customer satisfaction. If you've got to restart that conversation or that original inquiry that you had, that question, and then you know you switch over to another communication channel, it's a bumpy ride from a customer's point of view. And also it then puts staff under more pressure because they don't know what was said via that channel because typically marketing deals with that channel, not you
Yeah.
know. So it's a really interesting thing, but I think you know technology it can apply lots of challenges to businesses, but also it can help solve challenges as well as. So it's that balance though.
Yeah, well, often with new technology, it solves a whole bunch of problems, but then raises a new crop of them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you know it's tough for staff, it's tough for businesses. Yeah, and it's an interesting time, and technology is going to definitely help people in that situation for sure.
Yeah. So Silchester Farm is you're doing corporate events,
Yeah.
I'm sure other smaller and larger events, and you're doing weddings. Um, there is a lot of talk within the event industry of shorter lead times, tighter budgets. Is that something
Mm.
you're seeing?
For us, we are probably on the higher end of people's budgets. We're a luxury venue, so for us, we're seeing you know good throughput from inquiries still. Last year, I think the whole industry said that numbers were down slightly, but we've seen a really strong start to January. Again, you go into these things thinking that it's going to be okay, but you never quite know. But
Yeah.
January, February, people have certainly come back to the fold and want to push on. I don't think they're ever quite at post-COVID levels. You know, the first sort of 12, 24 months after the reopening of COVID was a challenging time for the for the industry. It was busy, but also there was that kind of demand there as well. But also there was a backlog of people that just wanted to move their lives forward. So that was there. I don't think it's at those levels for sure. But I think going back to my earlier point, this is why, as a venue, we've tried to ensure that our offering continues to move forward with relevance to what our customers want. We try and differentiate ourselves as much as we possibly can because we don't want to be labelled, within the same as everybody else's category. And for us, yeah, there's good business there. I think people are typically looking at different dates as well, like midweek dates have never been more popular for people to do that. But it's unique as a business, from an events perspective. You can almost cater for pretty much anyone's budget because you've got the Wednesdays available and you've got the Saturdays available. So for us, we just want to help people move their lives forward, and it does look strong. It does look strong.
You mentioned Wednesdays. Is that actually the most popular day, do you find, during the week?
It depends really. I think Thursdays are the most popular day, I would say, or certainly were last year. People typically didn't look as much at a Saturday. That's a very quick way to save a couple of £1,000 on a luxury high-end venue. So, and Thursdays they're the new start to the weekend, aren't they? So that's what everyone says. So
Well, this is the thing. It's much easier to take the Friday off for a
yeah,
Thursday
yeah.
event or wedding than it is for a Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think what happens typically is that people look at those other days as days of way as ways of being able to save a little bit. But actually what we're seeing is people then will layer on drinks packages or selections of this and that. So I think people typically go into this maybe holding back on budget, but then as they get closer to the date, typically then they look for other things to add on to that day to make it very different.
What is the food demand like? Are people moving over to non-alcoholic drinks and vegetarian style food, or how do you see that? What's your experience of that?
Yeah, and again, it's an area that I've seen, and we have certain weddings that might have 13 or 15 different allergens that we have to cater for. So we're definitely seeing that being something where, as a business, you've got to make sure, and that puts an additional layer of pressure on not just the event coordinators or event managers, but also the chef teams as well. And we want to make our food the best it can ever taste, right? And the menus are designed to do that, to make sure that people are really happy. And that's a challenge, especially when you've got to strip out some of those flavor groups within that food. So, yeah, that's a bit of a challenge at the moment. We're seeing a lot in the press where more people are on weight loss medication or jabs for sure, and there does seem to be a slight reduction in the amount of courses or the amount of volume of food that people want for sure. But we have, over the last few years, it's been interesting actually, whilst we've seen drink selections increase, so people getting miniatures and favors, more so we now stock our own spirits as well, which we distill and work with a partner to do that. The sales of those things have gone through the roof for us as a business, but weirdly, the bar spend slightly come down. So I think with dry Januaries and other, 25% now of adults don't drink. So I think we're going to continue to see those sorts of things. But again, it's an opportunity for businesses like us and venues like us to differentiate. Let's look at ways of being able to have some different drinks that aren't so dependent of alcohol in them. And that's something, again, as a business, we've really focused on not putting, a product behind the bar that you could expect everywhere else. We work again with breweries and the different businesses out there to make our everything about our venue and an experience, something they haven't had before anywhere else.
Yeah, because the trends for healthier eating and less or no alcohol is really the younger generation's pushing that forward, and it seems to be, I hate to say it, our generation, who seems to be going, actually, that's quite a good idea. I'll go
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, 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 yeah. We're fixed in our ways sometimes, but these new ideas for sure are coming into things. And again, that's saying what I said earlier about kind of trying to keep reinventing yourself, to keep looking at those trends, making sure that what you're pushing isn't a 12 course menu.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm not sure
um,
anybody has got the stamina these days to sit
yeah,
down with a 12 course,
yeah.
or the
We're
pocket
big
for
on
it. I mean, the budget
five
for
feasts
that
and
must be
yeah.
huge.
Yeah, we're trying to again differentiate ourselves into fire feasts, and there's other countries that influence menus and different things like that as well, really. And again, we're big on farm to fork, field to fork style foods. We've built out our own allotments at the farm. We've now got flocks of sheep. We're really focused on that amazing model of 25 or 50 mile menus. Polytunnel salads, things like that are grown on site, customers really get behind. And I love being at the farm and looking out the window and seeing couples just with their parents or with their relatives, with their children, whoever that is, they walk around the allotments and they pick a strawberry for their child or and that whole thing of creating something different rather than shipping in food from wholesalers, from chicken, from who knows where. We really get behind free range. We really get behind organic. We really try and just cut that source down as much as possible, but support local people, local businesses, and communities to create that difference in what we are. That's really important.
Yeah, sustainability. You only have to go back about 5, 10 years, and it was just a tick a box and you're done kind of
Yeah,
mentality. But now it's actually a complete business opportunity. It's something that's actually now going to attract so many more people because
yeah,
it's now becoming much more important to clients, event planners, corporates. They all want to be seen as being sustainable, healthy, and
yeah,
offering a good range of better food
yeah.
and better venue.
Yeah, yeah, and we're absolutely on point with that, and as a farm, quite nicely in some ways isolated, but it also means we're off mains gas and other things there, right? And over the last couple of years, we're on this mission to be more sustainable as a business. We've got barns with roofs on them that we're replacing with solar, and our big ambition really is to do carbon neutral weddings. That's where we want to be. Carbon neutral events is such a big thing. Imagine as a business being able to tell not just your teams this, but also your customers that actually you can come and have an amazing event and actually not have any real kind of bad feelings about that. And typically events are high waste, right? They can typically be one-off plastics that are used as table favors, or you think about how many flowers arrive on a wedding day as well.
Well, cut
There's
flowers, which
yeah,
doesn't help.
yeah, absolutely. So there's all these contributing factors there which can make the wedding industry or events industry and hospitality as a whole not the most sustainable, but we're on a real mission to do that. But also not just for customers, but for our teams as well. We take time out to go on wellness walks. We walk around the farm, we spend time with the animals, we spend time with them as a team, but also we put on food for our teams to make sure that they come to work, especially if they're doing 25,000 steps a day, that they get the right food to fuel them, to give us as a business the right outcome. It's really about looking after people as much as possible, not just the customer.
Yeah, having staff with a great healthy mindset
Yeah,
and healthy in themselves
yeah,
and as fit as they could possibly be for who they are.
yeah.
It's also makes business sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we need to do more as venue owners to look after people as much as we possibly can because they are the coalface of your business, right? They are the smile, right? When a customer arrives, it's so important that we give them the fuel to do that. The pay to do that as well. They are working typically at weekends, they're working at peak times. They're at the emotional end as well as the physical end of this, and it's really important that us as businesses and individuals or whatever you are, just try and do your absolute best to make sure that you're creating that environment that can help them flourish really.
I think you've probably said this already, but is there one or two things that you think hospitality should be doing based on your experience and how things have gone at the farm?
Yeah, I think reimagining yourself is a good place to be, but I think also being humble and understanding where you are currently, but where you want to get to as a business is really important. And I don't mean that just from your customer's point of view, your offering point of view, your staff point of view. It's just really you know, really important that you have a vision of where you want to get to. And we're really fortunate at the farm because we get a refurbishment project done or a piece of work or a marketing initiative done and completed. But quite quickly after that, we say, well, what's next then? Or what else can we do that would improve this for everybody? So I think reimagining yourself and having a clear vision of where you want to get to as a business, but for your people as well is really important. Don't stand still for long. Like if you stand still, others will be able to get ahead in whatever form they can. So I think that's really important. I think keeping your eye on those trends like we talked about, Bob's really important. Making
Yeah.
sure that you stay relevant in an ever-changing world. And it's not just from a technology point of view, it's changing, but it's from every angle. And that's going back to my earlier point about working in startup technology, trying to apply that thinking to your everyday, right? Have that time with your team, get that feedback from them on what's going on, what's working, what's not, and really just look like, as much as you possibly can from everyone's perspective that you're pushing those things on and solving some of those challenges for sure.
Wise words. And I think that's where we'll leave it. So thank you very much for your time.
No, I thank you for yours. It's been brilliant to talk about this, and yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. So thank you.
Huge thanks to Alistair for his time and insights. If you want to hear more about this topic, then please leave a comment or get in touch. And of course, a huge thank you to our partners for their continued support. Vividink, PR and social media marketing specialists for the event industry, and Eventflow, the secret weapon for events teams who've had it with PDF exhibitor manuals. You can show your support by liking and subscribing and by leaving a comment. Thank you so much for listening.